So this is a Techqueria event. Welcome. I'm gonna pause the music because now we're getting into the event and the cool stuff. So with Techqueria, our goal is to really build up the Latinx community, help each other, build each other up. And we do that through a lot of different things. Right now, our Slack community is our biggest community where we go through everyone, we make sure that you identify as Latinx and that you can contribute to our community in that way. And then we have a bunch of resources and events and different things that are open for just the Slack community and also external people. This is one of these events that we are trying to do to build more knowledge around different industries within tech. So thank you to Pocket Gems for collaborating with us. And we do have a code of conduct. Our goal is to make sure that this is an inclusive and a safe space for everybody. We want to make sure that we use inclusive language for all. We're respectful of each other. And if we see some action in the chat or anything else that comes up, we're going to kick you off the event and follow up later. We do have a large list of things of what not to do. But I think if you're engaging positively and building each other up, we shouldn't have an issue today. All right. I'm letting people in at the same time, so I'm multitasking. But join the fun. We do ask you to just mute yourself, and you can turn on your video while someone is talking. And then later on, we're going to be able to have a Q&A where you can unmute yourself and ask those questions. If you have a question during the Q&A, you can raise your hand or just drop it in the chat for now. And then let us know what you're thinking about the whole experience. So dropping your reactions as well. And we want to stay connected with you. So in the chat, I'm going to drop a little bit of a Google Sheet that we created. This is so that you can drop in your LinkedIn information and you can get to know other people. That link didn't work. Let me send the longer link. So you can drop in your information. Let us know if you're interested in doing more professional development or being contacted by our sponsor today. And we will share this out with them. And a shout out to all of the event leads from Techqueria. And a big thank you to our partner event leads, Nathan and Ashik. And also our speakers for today. So we have Jackie, who's a recruiter, Mauricio, a senior engineering manager, and Juan, who is a technical lead. And just as a reminder, we always have some Loteria prizes, and we had to stay on theme this time. So we have a COVID Loteria that we're raffling off. We have a gamer t-shirt. And for those grown-ups out there, we have the Tragos games. So you can choose to do a fun drink or just coffee in the mornings. Totally adaptable. And now I'm gonna pass it over to Nathan.
Just want to check everyone can see this before I start. Great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashik. I'm an engineering director here at Pocket Gems, and I'm really excited to talk to you today about working in the gaming industry. So before I start, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up loving games. I love playing them. It was really fun. But honestly, I never imagined I'd grow up being able to actually work in games. After college, I went to work in military robotics. And while that was cool from a technical standpoint, after the novelty wore off, it wasn't really that fulfilling. That all changed when I took a call from a recruiter at Pocket Gems. I've been here now for over 10 years. And the best part really is the amazing feeling you get from building things that really bring joy to people. Building products that people really look forward to using and playing. Our players really love our games. So for example, here is a tweet from rapper Megan Thee Stallion talking about our game Episode and how much she enjoys playing it. Not just that, our games bring people together. So one of our games, War Dragons, is about taking dragons and blowing things up. And people come for the dragons, but they really stay for the community. And as a matter of fact, a number of our players actually met their spouses on War Dragons. And so here are examples of a couple of our players who found their spouse through War Dragons and got married. Now, you might be saying, this is really cool, but what if I don't have previous experience in gaming? What if I haven't worked there? And that's okay. More than half of my coworkers didn't work in gaming before this. As I said before, I used to work in military robotics. I have coworkers who used to work in recruiting software, in ad software, in consulting, and architecture before working in games. Where it really comes down to be successful in gaming is being really good at communication, really good at teamwork, and really caring a lot about building really great products for people. The next thing that might come up is, you might be asking, well, what if I'm not a gamer, right? What if I didn't spend my weekends growing up playing Call of Duty or Assassin's Creed? Well, don't worry. For a long time, games like Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty really defined the gaming landscape. And that's what we call our traditional AAA games. But things have really changed in the last 20 years. Games like Wii Sports and Just Dance really opened up gaming to a lot of new people by making it a lot more accessible and a lot more casual. Platforms like Facebook opened it up even broader to allow new social gaming for players. And then things really exploded when mobile came to the scene. So I'm sure everyone here either has played, has a friend that's played, or a parent that plays Candy Crush. With that, right now, we know that over 40% of the world's population plays game, over $3.1 billion. And that culminates in the video game industry making more money than the music industry and the movies industry combined. And 2020, with the COVID-19 pandemic and the quarantine orders to stay at home, people have turned to games. It's been a fantastic rise in the gaming industry overall. And it's not just you and me. I'm sure all of us here last year checked out Fortnite or Animal Crossing or Among Us, but it's a lot of people, right? You have celebrities like Drake who live stream themselves playing Fortnite. You have people like AOC and Ilhan Omar who also live stream playing Among Us. Gaming is a really great fit for your career. And I'd like to hand it off to my colleague, Nathan, to talk about yourself working at Pocket Gems.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ashik. And hello, everyone. My name is Nathan Evans, working as a recruiter here at Pocket Gems. Been with the company for a couple of years now, and much like Ashik and some other folks you'll be meeting today, also came from another company that was non-gaming. This is my first job in the gaming industry. I'm only going to take your time for a couple of minutes here just to kind of give you an introduction on Pocket Gems and let you know who we are, what we're about, kind of give you the background of the folks you'll be hearing from for the rest of this talk today. And so, to talk about Pocket Gems, we're a company based out of San Francisco that really has the intent of trying to make the best possible games and entertainment we can, built from the ground up to work really well on mobile. So iOS and Android platforms, phones and tablets, really making it so that we can try and build experiences that from their core are made to work really well on that mobile platform. We're over 200 employees. We've had over 500 million downloads of our games since we got started. And right now as well, we have 2 games that are currently live that we're still continually supporting with brand new content, updates, staying connected with our communities across the globe. So just to talk really briefly about our games, again, to give you a little bit of a background, War Dragons is one game that we currently have out that is kind of one of our more core games. We got started as a company with really casual games, and this was our first foray into making beautiful 3D graphical games. You have synchronous multiplayer in there. There have been over 1.5 billion battles fought of like people, breeding these dragons, building their bases, blowing up other people's bases, and much like you saw that Ashik was showing earlier as well, making friends and kind of building a community around this game. We, like I said, are still supporting this game and plan to do so for a long time in the future. And we still make just beautiful art, beautiful designs to go into these games to make it a really fun experience for our players, both new and those that have been with us since it launched. And then also I wanted to talk about episode as well. This is the one that Meg Thee Stallion was tweeting about. Again, over 250 million downloads for this game. If you like drama, like this is a great game to play and a great game to talk about. This is really kind of a different type of game in terms of, it's a really big on story experiences and narrative design. We're putting the players in the driver's seat, being able to create their own content and really add to this platform and build a really robust community for all of our players that make this game. So just wanted to be able to highlight these 2 areas as 2 games that we're currently working on, just to, again, give a little bit of background on some of the folks you'll be meeting today. But want to be able to just mention really briefly as well some of the job opportunities that we currently have available. So if you haven't taken a look at our job page, this is just a quick look at some of the positions that we currently have open. And if one of these jobs speaks to you, we'll be getting connected with you at the end of this as well. And if you don't see a position here just yet, that is something that might be a good fit. Definitely stick around for this talk. We're going to be talking a little bit more generally about all the different fields you can expect to see in gaming, ways that you can fit your career in. And with us at Pocket Gems, maybe we'll have a position for you again in the future. But with that, I want to go ahead and pass this off to Jackie to talk a little bit about what it's like to be able to change careers and what's different about gaming.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. So my name is Jackie. I'm a recruiter here also at Pocket Gems. And like many of my colleagues, I did not start off in gaming. So let's chat about a little bit on changing careers from, let's say, the tech industry or literally any other industry to gaming. So like I mentioned, I started off in non-gaming and then I transitioned to Pocket Gems almost 2 years ago. So just to talk a little bit about the similarities and differences between tech and non-tech. So there's quite a few. So from a business perspective, really looking at it, both companies really do work to provide a service or a product with the ultimate goal of providing value to its users. And of course, that leads to profits and creates a sustainable business to make money and keep your jobs. And it's just a way that businesses work. So they both have that in common. And you'll also see that both of them have a lot of cross collaboration and very much team oriented kind of values and philosophies in order to reach their goals. And so that's a very common practice for both. And then of course, they both have a passion for innovating and creating the next best thing. I mean, that's why tech is always constantly evolving and moving so quickly, and so are games as well. I will say, however, there are quite a couple major key differences that, in my perspective, puts gaming above tech. So those being that there is a huge passion for the quality of games that gaming companies create. You may find that many employees are actually gamers themselves, and even those who aren't gamers find a passion in what they do because they can see the impact that they have on the community. That in itself is a really big motivator. You also get to interact with creatives, which is really fun, whether that be artists, game designers, marketing, or graphics. I'm sure quite a few of you have seen the episode ads. They're very fun, very scandalous, and being able to work with creators like that and interact with them is really awesome. And for those who are extremely career and craft focused, gaming companies really do give you the opportunity to receive instant qualitative and quantitative feedback from your audience. That can be through surveys, social media, product releases, or reviews. Your audience will definitely tell you when they like something and when they don't. And so because of that, you'll constantly be improving and making better products and improving your own craft and hitting that next level, which is awesome. On top of that, we're in the business of fun. That's what we try to do, and that's why we make products. So having fun is just part of the culture as well as part of the product. And I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I love having fun, and working at a company that is all about fun is pretty awesome. And last but not least, you really get to work on a product that you actually see, you can use, you can interact with it, and you can actually share with your family and friends. I know previously I tried to explain to my parents what, this like product that, is like a, just a regular like CRM product or like a tech product, and trying to explain that to them. They didn't get it, but then you show them the episode or word dragging game and you can say like, I helped build this, and they totally get it. And it's just so rewarding, so impactful, and they may or may not stick around and start buying gems on their own. So, it's pretty fun also. But just to go a little bit more as to, that career transition. Just some things that I want to point out is that there are a ton of perks that the gaming industry offers. And when you're thinking about making the switch, you really do have to pay attention to each gaming company because it's really different. There are many options, and not all of them may suit your work style, but there are quite a few that will. So just some things I want to call out, like some companies are solely focused on making games, and some have departments for games within the larger organization. So think about like pure gaming companies or companies who are larger and have different departments, and one of their departments is gaming. So that's one thing to think about. Some games are made by multinational companies with offices and teams in the thousands. And some games are made with fewer than 5 people. So you have to think about team size as well. Here at Pocket Gems, we're about 200, so we're in that nice sweet spot. And then you also think about, you know, as far as like if you're going into software development or product, much of the development process is actually in agile workflow. Not all companies have that, but majority, I will say, do. But, you know, it's something to keep in mind as well. And so that's just kind of like some differences within the gaming companies and just something to think about. And then one thing that Ashik mentioned as well is that gaming experience isn't always required. I would say that for roles that are extremely particular to gaming, such as, let's say, a game designer or a senior Unity designer, those make sense to have some gaming experience because you're directly working with the game. But a lot of other roles, I would say probably majority of the roles, you really don't need gaming experience. Also, I would say like tech experience, projects, courses that you've taken at universities, boot camps, all of those are all applicable. And if you have that in your background, definitely highlight it. And of course, having an interest in games definitely helps too. And then aside from that, one thing that I also want to note is that there are also a lot of gaming companies that offer internships. Pocket Gems being one of them, we actually have an internship every single summer that we're actually hiring for. So we're actually looking for a software engineering intern. If you are, and this is a shameless plug totally, if you are looking, if you're a junior right now graduating, or rising junior, I should say, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. We can get connected and we can see if we can get you an internship this summer with Pocket Gems. But yeah, that's just one thing I want to mention, shameless plug like I mentioned. But yeah, overall, just want to say that when you're thinking about changing this career, whether it's to games or elsewhere, really just think about what factors are important to you, what you're looking for, and what's going to make you happy at work and give you that balance that you're looking for. So that's just some things to think about. And then aside from that, let's see. Here is just a little bit of some stats that were recently taken from LinkedIn. So there's a ton of opportunity within gaming, whether that be remote or in the Bay Area. So like I said, the industry is growing, and these are just some of the opportunities. I'm sure there's way more out there. And then last but not least, here are just some general roles that we typically find at gaming companies. This is true for Pocket Gems and true for other companies. But I will say this is a fairly limited list. So if you don't see your dream job here, don't be discouraged. It will be out there. It's just not here. This is just, like I mentioned, a very general list. And of course, like Nathan mentioned, we currently have open opportunities. So be sure to check out our jobs page. And if you are interested in internships in software engineering, feel free to reach out to me directly, and we can go ahead and get you connected with one of our recruiters here on the team.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mauricio Orlando. I am a senior engineer manager at Pocket Gems. A little bit about myself. I was born in Caracas, Venezuela. I lived there till my 20s. Then I moved to Helsinki, Finland. And after that, I moved to the US. I've been working in the video game industry for about 12 years. I started working in the industry already in college, and after I finished college, basically I started in the game industry. So it's been a while. I worked in a lot of different projects for different platforms. I've seen a bit of the evolution of platforms from hardcore games in consoles to flash games on the web to mobile games to VR. So that's definitely very interesting and goes along with what Ashik was saying, that there's definitely a lot of space in the industry for all kinds of audiences and all kinds of people. at this point. And today I'm going to be giving you a brief overview of how we take an idea from the beginning and turn it into a working demo or proof of concept that we can share and validate with our peers. So for the very first steps, you don't even need a computer. You can go a long way by writing down your ideas and your mechanics, simulating them in your head. By that, I mean, if it's a console game, pick up a controller and imagine like you're playing it, or pick up a phone with the black screen and imagine that you're swiping and try to picture your game. Here, it definitely comes into hand having some experience as a gamer, having played those type of games before, because you rely on memories for this. But it's not the only technique. This other one, so simulating on paper or paper prototyping, it's just how it sounds. It's making an arts and craft project that showcase how your game is gonna look. And this one also goes a long way. And both techniques apply to different kind of people, right? Like if you're more visual, or you're a designer and you're coming from that side, maybe this is the best way, right? Like if you're good with arts and crafts, you can go a long way without having to type a single line of code or getting to building the project yet. And again, this will save a lot of time and it helps communicate the ideas with other people in the project. So at this point, hopefully these pre-prototyping iterations help us polish our initial concepts, and they help us realize what are the unique elements of that idea, what really stands out and should be shown in a demo and also proved, right? What is new and haven't been proved before. This is very important because we don't have all the time in the world. We have constrained resources and time. And we have to choose wisely. We have to know what is the goal and the overall mission of our prototype, and all our resources should be going in that direction. Just to clarify, this new idea it can take many shapes. It can be an exciting new mechanic, like gameplay mechanic. By gameplay mechanic, I mean the most atomic actions that you can take in a game, like well, there's an example there, like opening a portal and the character goes in and comes out the other way, and how does this portal works, like the running and jumping, things like this. Those are all mechanics. So it could be a new and completely new mechanic. It could also be a combination of existing mechanics that haven't existed before. So you're relying on a lot of proven concepts here and just combining it in different ways. It could be a new way of monetizing an existing idea. It could be a new way to present existing ideas to the player, or it could be something, not a game altogether, but a new app or service that interacts with the gaming ecosystem. And it's still part of the gaming industry and definitely matters the audience and where the game industry is at that stage. So all of these things should be taken in account. And now going for the interesting part. Now, when we already have our idea, we have our goals, we know what we want to build, it's time to define our tool set. And the good news for this is that it has never been a better time for making games. It has never been easier. Not saying that it's easy, but it's easier than it used to be. There's a lot of tools competing with each other. So there's definitely for whatever you need, there's going to be a tool out there for you. And even whatever your role is, there are very good tools out there. So if you're not familiar with them yet, I would really recommend starting with the research, because there's a lot of material out there basically at this point, and it's really easy to get started really fast. And like I said, with enough material, there's also a lot of learning material for all of these different tool sets. And a lot of this material, if not most of it, is free. So you don't need a bootcamp to get started. You can get started just by going on the internet, choosing the right tools for you. There's a lot of forums where people go and ask, hey, I'm new to this, I'm making this type of game. And people are generally very welcome and give very good answers to that. Sorry. And on top of that, most of these, I guess, famous tools or very well used tools in the market, they nowadays they all have their own marketplaces where people sell templates, um, art, systems. So you don't have to even start from scratch from the tool set that you chose, but there's most likely there's going to be something for you out there to get you started. And just as an example, this is a screenshot I took from the Unity Asset Store, and which is one of these marketplaces. And you can see in the screenshot, there's a template for a fighting game, a template for a massive online RPG game, a template for urban traffic systems, match 3, bubble shooter, poker, horror, first-person shooter, a survival engine and crafting, uh, endless runners. And that's, I promise, I wasn't even trying when taking the screenshot. It happened at random. I took it for the presentation, and then when I was writing what I was going to say, I look at it and it was perfect. There was so much content there. So there really is a lot to get you started. Having said that, it's also important to do your research, not only about the tool sets that you're using, but what material is already out there, what games or apps are already out there that are similar to yours, and use that for inspiration. Just as an example, if you're working on a platformer game, let's say you have this idea on a platformer game of somebody that is delivering food. Maybe that game doesn't exist yet, but there's definitely a lot of platformers there. There's definitely a lot of games that use these mechanics in a very different ways, right? And that's when you would go and study them. And in the platformer case, what do I mean? Like, how does the character move in this world? Do they feel heavy? Do they start running really fast from scratch, or do they have some inertia to their movement? What's the acceleration feels like? How does the gravity feel like in this world, right? Like when they jump, does it feel floaty, or do they? It feels like a really fast jump. And again, like just from the picture, there's a lot of examples already out there that went for very different mechanics. And the chosen mechanics of, in this case of how a character will move, you choose them as a designer because they match all of the other aspects of your game, right? So this is when the research comes into play for you to find other games to take those ideas that they really match well with your own. Having said that, I also wanted to mention, so it used to be typical that, and it's true, to prove a concept, you don't need too many visual resources in a game. You can definitely go a long way and prove that something is fun with very little art behind it. And usually that's one of the best proof of concepts, right? Because if there's no art to lure you into the game and you still like it, that's a good game. But having said that, aesthetics do matter. And by that, I mean, going back to this again. So by that, I mean, you're still trying to communicate a lot of ideas and a lot of things that are happening to players and other people that are not yourself. So this is a perfect case, right? There's a lot of rectangles and shapes in there. And maybe when you play, you can get somewhat of an idea of what the game is about, but not at a simple glance. And without too much effort and or hiring an artist or creating a lot of art for yourself, you can get this a lot more organized and communicate the ideas a lot better. And for that, I go back again to the existing marketplaces. There's tons of assets. Like so before I was showing the systems and the scripting side, and this one I'm showing more of all the art assets that they have. There's 3D assets, particle systems and effects, audio assets. So it is actually quite simple to go. Let's say we wanted that traffic system that we saw there, and it works. It's kind of like a Grand Theft Auto game where cars move around and they have AI. Then we can come in here and maybe buy these buildings, these building set, which cost around 20 bucks, 25 bucks, the whole package. And that definitely will take you a long way to showing off the prototype and communicating the ideas. On the other side, you can also see there's a lot of assets as well. If you don't want to like completely define the art style, because sometimes you don't want to do that for the prototype, you want to keep the attention on what's going on. There's a lot of really good prototype assets that they're not in any specific art style. They're clearly prototype assets, but they go a long way in communicating. They're very clear on what they are and what they could be replaced with in the long run with real art. This is just a couple of other assets I wanted to show. So just basically showcase that there is, again, a lot of material out there, and there's a lot of fully already made assets for you. So there's a whole package you can buy if you have a specific idea, and maybe you're an engineer, you know how to code already, but you're not very good with art. That's how I started. And I used art assets through my career, and they help a lot. And again, also a lot of these assets, it's good to remind that there's a lot of free stuff already in the marketplace. So even if your budget is zero, there's a lot of systems that already come in for free, even the ones I mentioned before, some of them, and a lot of the art packages as well come in for free. And one last thing I wanted to share, I don't have a slide for that, but it's that it's never too early, to include analytics. And again, with this, there's a lot of systems that help you with this to do it from not from scratch. And basically, it's just a couple of lines of code of registering events, and that will really help you even from the scratch, even from a prototype. It goes a long way if you have the data of, like, maybe you gave the game to 30 people and you can see, oh, whoa, like, why is 90% of the people failing on level 2, but then they don't fail on level 3? Like, it gives you a good idea of what you're doing wrong in the beginning and proving your hypothesis. And with that, I want to thank you all for joining me. Hopefully you have more questions for me. And I'll give it to Juan.
All right. I think I'm going to share my screen. There you go.
Well, once it's up, you can drop any questions that you have in the chat right now before they run away from your brain, and just hold on to them, drop them in the chat, and then we'll bring them up during the Q&A portion as well.
All right. You guys can hear me well, right? All right. See, nudging. All right. So I'm presenting myself here. I'm Juan Silva. I studied software engineer at the University of Chile. I'm Chilean. I worked in 5 different game studios across 3 different countries and 1 AR hardware company. That's very interesting. And I also have about 9 years of experience, believe it or not. And I lived in Chile, Canada, and the States now. So I want to share something here about the world of video games. Here we have Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy, The Legend of Zelda, Super Mario Odyssey. From left to right, we have a first-person shooter, a Japanese role-playing game, an open-world action-adventure, and a platformer. They have more or less absolutely nothing in common, yet all are video games. So with this conveys something. So in order to create these video games, there are plenty of challenges to overcome, same as the challenges themselves in the video game. Every game presents unique challenges, unique solutions, and unique systems that must be implemented in order to create new experiences. So if you like this kind of challenges, you may like to work in the video game industry. Now, in any video game studio, engineers are more or less expected to work closely with game design and art. There's a constant feedback loop across multiple functions. Also to figure out possible solutions or what is possible or not possible within time constraints and other constraints as well. So to integrate art and also help with any other issues during development is because we're there. So specifically in mobile video games, for mobile video games, we have to handle different operating systems across across multiple different versions. In our case, Pocket Gems, we have games for iOS and Android. We also need to stay up to date with yearly releases, modifying the code accordingly to new APIs, policies, API deprecations, and so on. So this can be really tricky in some cases. Besides that, we also need to handle different devices with different underlying system specifications, differences in implementation, etc. So the device-specific bug term is not uncommon, and sometimes you can see this all over the desk. Like you have multiple devices. Also, we need to operate within resource constraints, within a resource-constrained environment, which means we have a limited CPU power. We have to use the least amount of memory RAM and the least amount of storage. We also need to handle different small screen sizes, aspect ratios. So performance and efficiency are one of the key factors when it comes to writing code for mobile video games or mobile devices in general. Now, in terms of what is it to be a technical lead, you have certain expectations or certain realities. I tend to believe that when people think about technical leads, VPs or CTOs, they think about being master of something or being master as a specific branch of engineering. And they should know all the questions and all the answers. But in reality, that is not true. In reality, there are many solutions with many different pros and cons to the same problem. As a technical lead, you're not expected to know everything, but to ask the right questions. Accumulate knowledge, keep learning, make good suggestions, and balance what can be delivered within time constraints. Knowing how to solve immediate problems is only one part of the whole. Having an intuition where that solution will lead to is the other side. Even more so, realizing what game designers and art want is not the same as what they need. So here are the do's and do nots, or should and should not. And a technical lead should guide, not command, should teach, but not tell other people what to do, have good suggestions, but not all the answers, and have good questions, not all the answers, and have good suggestions, but not binary answers like yes or no. There's always a middle ground. And I want to bring some examples, real world examples that we face almost every day. In this case, last year, we upgraded War Dragons. By the way, I'm an engineer for War Dragons, to be compatible with iOS 14 from iOS 13, using Xcode 12 from Xcode 11. So there was a bug report about an infinite loading screen that we've never seen before. The same code was working fine on iOS 13, but not on iOS 14. After some investigation, the team reached out to me to see if I could help. This was very tricky because I didn't have a device to test with. So the only thing I could do was to jump on a call and try some things and discard some hypotheses. So The cause of this at the end was an internal implementation change inside the iOS framework. So for iOS 13, the API was executing synchronously. For iOS 14, the API was executing asynchronously. So the change was not documented, but also was not specified as such, as synchronous or asynchronous. So only after debugging, adding several breakpoints, and extrapolating some other issues that happened in the past, is that we found what was really happening. So we applied a solution, but in general, overall, it took experience, good intuition, and a different implementation of the API, and a different, interpretation of the API documentation in order to find the issue and fix it. Now, there's another example here. The context is that for War Dragons, we tend to release every season new dragons, new spells, and spells that are kind of unique and distinct from other dragons. So a while back, we got a requirement that designers needed a new spell for the next dragon season. So this is more or less what they wanted, give or take some minor details. I'm obviously exaggerating, but putting an image completely different from the context just for this example. But in any case, we've been doing this for a while. So this was nothing new. And some of the parts were already built, but for different spells, for different spells. So it was impossible to reuse those parts without disturbing already existing spells. So when the design was presented, we proposed another solution, something more flexible, extensible, and reusable that can be used many times in the future without or minimal engineering support. Granted, it requires some time to invest. So this was what we proposed. I'm going to explain this later. After some conversation and compromises, we decided to go ahead and do it. At first, you can think of it as a hectic mess, just a bunch of parts and pieces. And yes, but parts and pieces that can build this, exactly what the designers wanted, only that it requires some assembly. Or this, if they were up to that. Or this, if the imagination was just the limit. So at the end, something that satisfied what design really needed, not what they really wanted. Everybody is very excited about this feature that we are about to release pretty soon. And we're already planning a second version of it to extend even further the functionality. So what is my take after all this about being a tech lead? I tend to think about good engineering in general, similarly to writing books. Everybody that knows how to write is capable of writing a book, but not everybody can write a bestseller. To get there, you need dedication, you need to get experience, and you need to learn what works and what doesn't. In essence, learn, improve, and share. And those are my final thoughts. And I think I'm going to give back the presentation.
Thank you. That was really cool. So now we're going to pass it over to Kat, who's going to do a Q&A with the three speakers today.
Awesome. Well, everyone, throughout this these next couple minutes here that I have with our speakers here, Mauricio, Juan, please feel free to drop any of your questions here so I could ask them to our lovely panelists here. But I do have a few questions that I wanted to ask you both here. And one of those first questions was one that I really wanted to learn a little bit more about is what is the health of the gaming industry? I know this was kind of touched upon in the beginning, but I'd really love to hear from Juan maybe for this first one and then Mauricio next. what is the health of the gaming industry, and probably some current trends that you see, especially with the remote shift that you saw here in 2020 going into 2021 and beyond.
Just a clarification, when you
Yes.
mean health of the game industry, you mean,
is it going to be expanding more? Do you see any limitations? I think in the tech industry, it's careers are booming. You've seen new careers that may not have even emerged until this past recent year. I'd love to learn a little bit more, especially for us that may not know too much about the gaming industry. We'd love to learn here today.
so in my experience, the industry itself is pretty healthy. I mean, as Ashik presented all the numbers, there are usually a lot of positions available and a lot of studios being created and acquired and moved around. And it's just because the need for entertainment, I'll say. Once you play a video game, sure, depending on the video game, you can play for years or maybe a few months and then drop it and move to the next one. So that there's that unlimited part of the need to being entertained. And what was the second question? Sorry.
I think you answered it. The
Okay.
need to be entertained, especially with a lot of folks being, set at home. It's something that we all were kind of craving. We weren't able to go out and have that one-on-one. So I think we saw that huge boom, especially in 2020 being in quarantine and lockdowns. I think and hearing from you and the numbers that Ashik shared, it seems like the gaming industry now is a good time to join, better than ever, it seems like here.
Yeah. I think the other question was about the challenges of working from home.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned in one of the slides, it's pretty challenging so far, especially for mobile video games. And I will say for any video game industry, for any console, or well, maybe not for PC, but for consoles as well, is that you need devices. And that is scarce. We have a limited supply of devices at Pocket Gems, and we get more with every release. But sometimes it happens that there's a specific bug for one specific device that we need to fix. And that is the same for Switch, even for computers as well, for mobile devices. So yeah, overall it's pretty challenging. We have pretty much figured that out for now at Pocket Gems, but still we never know what we'll find next.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Mauricio, if you want to hop in and answer those as well, would love to hear from you.
Sure. I think you also asked about the trends, the current trends.
If there are any, we'd love to hear some of them as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's definitely a lot of current trends. It always feels like, I guess from the outside, like, yeah, we reach the end, right? Like what's after mobile gaming? But there's definitely a lot of current trends I think I see. Definitely augmented reality. So, games like Pokemon Go that either use the cameras or the GPS to make the gaming experience. Definitely after Pokemon Go, that was a peak, but we're seeing a lot more effort and a lot more investing putting into that area. Same with virtual reality. It had a bumpy start, but it's doing well, and I mean it's definitely increasing. The platforms are doing well, so I think, and there's already news. We had the first unicorn VR company from Seattle. It's a rec room. It's a VR game where people get together, they socialize. There's a lot of mini games. So yeah, very interesting, I think. Another one that is very interesting is very good as well. It's inclusivity. I think companies and publishers are putting a lot more effort into being inclusive. We are putting a lot more effort in Pocket Gems in being inclusive, and we put a lot of effort for a while. But I feel like everybody is putting a lot more effort into this in general, and we're gonna see it in the content and in the games in the future. What else? Another one I can think of is just real-time multiplayer in mobile, and that's just mainly because our connections are getting better than when mobile gaming started. So doing real-time multiplayer right now and better graphics is something that companies are doing, and a lot of the best-selling games in mobile are real-time multiplayer games nowadays. And another one where I see expanding also is just a lot more devices, like Apple TVs and separate devices like this. What's this? Alexa, things like that. There's a lot of successful gaming companies that they focus like solely on this type of games. Yeah, I think those are some of the trends that I see.
I think all pretty relevant trends that, we're starting to see emerging here. And I think one question did pop up here that I'd love to hear from both of you. Juan, if you want to start out with this one, since you started out, it's actually from one of our attendees here. From some context from this attendee, I'm graduating from a game programming degree in a year. And before that, I was a web developer. What is the interview process like going into game development 3D rendering? The second part to that question is, what skill level is reasonable for an entry-level position? Juan, feel free to answer the first part here, and we could kind of break it down, and I could repeat the second question if you'd like as well. I know it's a two-part one here.
Yeah, no, I see the question there in the
Awesome.
chat. What is the interview process? Well, that depends on the company that you're applying. And also depends on the position that you're applying. If you want to do 3D rendering, then the questions are going to be related to 3D rendering, spatial math, and maybe other rendering techniques. For general game development, the set of questions are different. Like how would you implement X or Y systems? And also the typical question that is related to algorithms and data structures. Of course, that depends on the company again, but very basic questions to know to put you in at a certain level that the company expects. If you don't meet that, then just don't. If you meet that, then yes, you can move ahead and to the next interview questions or the next phase. Now, that is kind of tied to the first question or the first answer that I gave. It depends on the position. It varies widely. So depending what you are applying to, that will be a reasonable skill. I'm not sure what the intention of that question was, but I think I answered.
Thank you, Juan. And I know I'd love to get some insight here from, our very own Pocket Gem recruiters, Jackie, here to see if she could highlight a bit more there. I think, everything you answered and shared there, Juan, was still really insightful. Jackie, if you want to step in and answer that two-part question, would love to hear from you here as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I can answer it in more of like a high level, like what the actual interview process is. And so obviously it starts off with you submitting your resume and your application, or a recruiter may or may not reach out to you. And it typically starts with a phone call with a recruiter just to make sure that you're, the role is a match, the interest is there, and of course, just going over basic information. After that, it's usually a technical interview. And so the technical interview can cover a lot of things that Juan mentioned, and it could vary, but that's usually the case. And it'll be on really a bunch of different platforms. It could be on like a code pair platform, on a hacker rank, it could be a take home, it could be even a live coding session. So it just kind of depends on the company, but just know that you will have a technical exam at some point. After that is either a phone call with a hiring manager, or you move straight to onsite. So this process really does vary from company to company. In the onsite, I will say for the most part, a lot of technical interviews are quite long. They go between, I would say, 3 to 6 hours, mostly roughly around the upper end of that. And so prepare for a long day. You're going to be chatting with a lot of people, and a lot of it is a mix of not only just interpersonal and like behavioral interviews to make sure that you know how to collaborate with team members, know how you have strong communication skills, and obviously exhibit strong values. But the other sense, and I would say what's weighed more heavily for the most part, is your technical skill set. You know, are you, I guess in the broader term, like, are you able to complete the job and code? And of course, there's wiggle room in between that, and we obviously have our own different way for evaluating it. But those are the two things that we would evaluate for in that onsite. After that, it goes to references. Some companies don't do references, and then it goes to an offer. That's the very high level process that may or may not apply to all companies. And Nathan, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
Not really much else to add, except for the fact that, like, I know that you specifically are mentioning, you know, game dev 3D rendering. What I would say is, when you're going to take a look at a role, really take a look at the skills that they're looking for. And that, I know that sounds like super obvious, but if there are specific tools that they're outlining, like if you're learning like ZBrush, or if you're picking up, you know, they're looking for specific Unity experience, just make sure that you have those tools in your actual arsenal before jumping into those interviews, because you can definitely expect when you get on the phone with a recruiter or a hiring manager, they're going to be looking for that skill set. And so if you have it, definitely highlight it in your resume. Be ready to speak about it in your calls. But really, when it comes down to really any position, when it comes to like game development, yeah, I mean, in terms of preparation, just be ready to speak on your experience, be really confident in what you do know. And if you don't know something, like, be really open to being able to have that conversation. And with that being said too, if you don't end up getting a role, or you go through an interview and you're not sure what happened, try and figure out what that reason was. It's okay to ask for feedback. It's okay to, you know, look for, is there a specific skill I was missing? Was it something I said? Did I apply to a game company and didn't look or play any of their games? You know, there are other things that can kind of go into that as well. But in terms of the skill level for an entry level position, really depends on the role, right? So again, just take a look at that job description. The people that put those descriptions together do put a lot of thought into it when they're putting together what kind of experience they're looking for. And so, and apologies if you could hear trucks and things behind me. But yeah, just be confident in your applications, and just know if you're applying to a company that you're really familiar with the product that they have as well.
Awesome. Really appreciate the answers there from everyone here. And it seems like our very own attendee appreciated everyone's responses here. What I got out of that is have water and snacks ready for that 3 to 6 hour interview, and really highlight the technical skills you could bring to the team here. So I appreciate the heads up if it goes down that route ever there. One question I do have here is, how do you know that games that you're building are truly fun and captivating for the end users? You've built in and invested all this time into building it, but how do you know before it goes into launching that it's a truly captivating and fun game for the end users here? Now, I'll leave that open to whoever wants to take that on. Mauricio, if you want to step in, it looks like we may have lost Juan here or there.
Sure. So yeah, to clarify, we actually start testing our games really early. So as we start working on a prototype, we have milestones for that prototype, right? So we don't know if that game is actually going to be launched when we start working on it. We just have different milestones, like, okay, let's release this, you know, small version and try something, like, let's try how our data does with that game, like, and we can see, you know, like I mentioned, with analytics and with events, we can see the user funnel. So we can see, you know, how many players are playing our game on the first day, how many stay and play the second day, like how many play for a week. So those will be the milestones, right? Like in the beginning, if you have a very good first day retention, and for that, you don't need that much because it's little content. You only need enough for one day. So that would be, I think that's the most common practice nowadays, that it's gone to a very data-driven development.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Definitely, the milestones help. And I think to your presentation earlier, seeing hey, why did someone fail or not pass level 5, but they were able to get through this level so much quicker is those kind of analytics you want to look for to see how successful it can be for an end user. I do have another question here from Jennifer, and then we may be up at time. Let me know how much more minutes we have left here for more questions, Sal. We got 5 more minutes? Okay. We do have one question here from Jennifer, and the question is, do you find more gaming companies are hiring remote now that more companies are working remotely during the pandemic? I'll leave that here for whoever wants to chime in. Feel free, Jackie, Nathan, or Mauricio again, let me know.
I'm happy to chat about this. And I know, Jackie, you actually have a lot that you can speak of on this too, and from the intern side as well. I think game companies are kind of along with tech in a very similar space of being able to explore remote opportunities as a realistic professional possibility moving forward. I think the last year, as we kind of all saw with maybe our own companies, in or outside of games, that having that flexibility is definitely a big plus for a company. And depending on what's going on with that company, what kind of work they're doing, sometimes it's still important to be physically there. To be able to collaborate creatively, face to face, to be able to have discussions and kind of come to the best answers for solutions for the problems that we all have. So in terms of specific to the question, more game companies that are hiring remote now, yeah, there are more that are definitely doing that, and I would say that it is company specific. It can also be role specific, and so the answer to that is a very ambiguous. It depends. And then in terms of working remote during pandemic, I mean, speaking anecdotally, we at Pocket Gems, we're working currently remotely through the pandemic, but we do have plans to have a good chunk of our people back in the office once it's safe to do so. And so we see value in both. We also see value in trying to make sure we can be really equitable about the way that we have work for people in office and outside of office as well. And we know that'll take time to work out as well. So yeah, any additional context you wanted to add, Jackie, or anyone else?
Yeah, actually, we have a nice special guest here. Actually, we have Kenda, who is actually I want to make sure I get the title right. I believe it's VP of People Ops. Am I correct?
Director, but someday soon.
I'm sure she can chime in and share a little bit more on that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think Nathan spoke to it very well. But first of all, hi, nice to see everyone. This has been really interesting so far. The one thing I would add is I kind of feel like we've been paying very close attention to remote hiring, return to office, what the various trends are going on. And I think there's kind of 2 additional things that I would mention. One, Nathan kind of referenced, which is I do think that video games are different than other types of tech. I think there's something around the collaboration, the working together, the being able to literally walk over to somebody's desk and look at an image together that is harder to do in a virtual environment. And so that's something that I think we've done well when we needed to, but in a lot of ways, I think we're more eager to get back in the office than a lot of my friends and acquaintances that aren't in that similar sort of creative, collaborative type of industry. And then the other one is, I think that the media is actually overstating companies' ability to go remote a little bit. So even today, there was a discussion on our Slack about Google saying that they're coming back in September and that working from home will be about 2 days a week. And what we're hearing sort of behind the scenes from a planning perspective is that companies kind of feel like we thought remote was great at first. Now we're kind of realizing some of the shortcomings. So I think what we're finding a lot in our conversations is that a lot of people are interested in remote, but companies are kind of trying to find that balance a little bit more. And that's kind of where we're at as well. We're open to flexibility, but we're not going 100% remote tomorrow because that in-person collaboration is so important for us.
Thanks for chiming in. I appreciate it.
Really appreciate that, Kenda. And And I think we may have time for one more question, but feel free to stop me there, Sal, if we don't have more time. Okay. We'll try to squeeze in one more. And I think for our last question, I'd love to ask here for our panelists is just, sharing a little bit more about the culture in gaming here. It seems like, it's a very collaborative culture. Having that in-person face-to-face is something that has been very key, but you have made it work with the remote setting you're all in right now. But what would love to learn a little bit more about the culture internally, whether it's at Pocket Gems or just at other gaming companies as well. And I think this might be something that Jackie or Nathan, you could speak on a little bit more here, especially as you're talking to some folks that may be interested in joining here.
Nathan, do you want to go first?
So specifically kind of talking about like culture at a gaming company and kind of what all of that looks like. And so, happy to chat a little bit about, my experience with it, of course, working at Pocket Gems and recognizing when it comes to culture, companies do have a culture that they try to set in place and then it's made by the people. And so, having really great coworkers around you and being able to kind of make sure that they're living out that culture and kind of perpetuating that feeling is really important. And so, for me, working in a gaming company, the things that I've really noticed, and for context, like the previous place I worked before this, like I said, this is my first time working in a game company. My previous experience was working for a very large online marketplace, and so like coming here, it's different. The first thing that I'll kind of touch on is something that that Jackie mentioned a little bit in her talk as well, is that you're working with people that are really, passionate about the work that they're doing. They're passionate about innovating. They're passionate about creating fun for people. It's different when you're working for a company where everyone who's working on that product really cares about the product that they're putting together. The thing about games is people don't end up in games because they dislike games. People are getting there because they want to create those experiences for other people. And as a result, you get coworkers that work really hard, that are willing to help each other to try and accomplish those goals. Of course, I'm kind of just speaking anecdotally from what I've been able to see, but what I can say about Pocket Gems is that our culture is really big on making sure that there's a lot of collaboration across teams, that everyone feels like they have a say in every meeting and in every decision. People have the opportunity to be able to put in input, and so the product that comes out at the end it has a little bit of everybody in it. And because of that, people are going to care, that much more in making sure that it can be successful and is what we're looking to be able to provide for our players. And so, I could kind of ramble on this particular point, but happy to, let anyone else on the panel speak on that as well.
Yeah, I think you addressed it perfectly. Pocket Gems, I would say, is a unique place in particular, and like I said, I can only speak to my experience. Like I mentioned in my presentation, each gaming company is different. There's extremely large ones. There's ones that are literally 5 people. There's some that are mid-sized like us. And I would say that we're in that sweet spot of large enough where we have resources. We have people who left really big companies and really successful careers to come work for us and make amazing games. But yet you also have that small community within Pocket Gems that is supportive and reliable and wants to make games that are fun. And so when you have that balance, you really do strike a really, really, I want to say comfortable and inclusive and really warm culture that just makes you so excited to come to work every day. And so that's just my experience. I haven't worked at any other gaming companies, so I can't speak to that experience, but can certainly speak on that. And I don't know if anyone else wants to add anything, if there's any other questions on the queue.
I think we could all learn a little bit more and more about the industry here, but we're unfortunately right at time, and I do want to give plenty of time here to Sal to wrap us up here. So thank you so much, everyone, for the thoughtful answers here and for giving us a bit more insight into the industry here overall. Sal, I'll hand it over to you here to close us up.
Thank you, everybody. All right, let me share my screen. Well, actually, before I do that, I wanted to invite everybody to do a quick little group photo. And let's see, let me make sure that I stop sharing my screen. Okay, now we're good. Okay, so I'm gonna count down to 3, And if we can all turn on our video, if you feel comfortable. And then I'm gonna count everybody down, and then you can show your pearly whites and smile at 3, 2, 1. All right, let's do a couple more. Let's do a couple more. I saw some people blinking. All right, 3, 2, 1. Yay. Well, thank you, everybody. Now I'm gonna share my photo, or my screen. And let's see. And I just want to say again, if you want to stay connected with people, dropping your information on the chat with or on this document. Can you help me drop it in the chat?
I got you.
And thank you. It's kind of hard to like share screen and keep track of all the windows. But stay connected. I know that some of you are returners to our events. So if you run across someone that you've already connected with, I double, triple dare you to just reach out and connect. Actually chat with them, set up 15 minutes out of your day to just have a little cafecito and see where you're both at and how you can help each other. And let's talk about Loteria prices because we have some really good ones. So getting your game on with COVID Loteria, a little El Gamer t-shirt or a Tragos game. While y'all were speaking and listening and taking notes, I was playing a little raffle game and I pulled out 3 winners. So those 3 people are Alejandra Trejo, Ramos Rosas, and Karina Lopez. So if y'all can just stay behind a little bit, I'll get your information and then we'll get you the prices to you all. I want to take another second just to say thank you to our partners, Pocket Gems, for being here. And thank you to you for showing up and being present. Again, if you want to join our Techqueria or Slack community, you can do so and just sign up. So I'm going to rely on Kat once again to drop it in the chat. Our link, actually, yes. And then join our Slack community. We have a lot of resources that are free to all the Latinx community. And if you want to know about more events coming up, just go to events.techqueria.org. And there's a lot of good ones. Some of them we're still working on, but I'll give you a preview that we're working on something for Selena's birthday. So it's coming up, y'all, and it's going to be a blast. Thank you all so much for being here. And we'll follow up with an email and share the recording for you all so you can go back and follow up on different notes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having us. Bye.